computer-programmed reality. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Hey, good morning. Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. Hey, what's happening? What's happening, groovy guys, groovy gals? It's a beautiful day out there. A brisk and bright 68, but it looks like it's going to be about 78 by the time it's all said and done. It's not quite swimsuit weather, but you better keep hitting the gym because it will be soon. And you know you want your summer bod on demand when the clothes start coming off later in the days and the weeks to come. That's right. This broadcast is brought to you by RobertPhoenix.com, your one-stop shop for all needs astrological, personal, prophetic, universal, and mundane. Go to RobertPhoenix.com. I just had to get in a little radio voice there. What's going on out there? Yeah, a lot happening in the world. There's a lot happening out there. You're happening. Believe it or not, you are happening. Believe it or not, you matter. Now, in some ways, you don't matter. Right? Like, in some ways, you're nothing. And you're everything. You're the center of the universe, and you're not. This is the paradoxical nature of being a human. So for the next 35 to 45 minutes, in my world, you matter. And I hope in your world, you matter as well. Because last time I checked, we're dealing with matter. Right? This is the realm of matter. Density. Third dimension. Although I did have the distinct experience the other day, on Tuesday, that nobody really exists. That everything is just a projection of mind. And again, that's one of the kind of beautiful paradoxes of life. It's to wrap your head around that stuff. It's all just a projection of who you are. Like my voice, my thoughts, my words, they're just to some degree a projection of who you are. As scary as that might be at times, but it's true. And so we get to tune in to our own inner frequencies, our own internal guidance systems, our own transistor radios. Remember the old transistor radio? God, those times long gone. Long gone. But that's what we do. But yeah, I had a very clear experience. Nobody else existed. Then, of course, they do. I remember one time I was having a bit of a debate with a friend and a very good guy, he was a pretty well-respected New Age artist. Did a lot of New Age kind of visionary art. Very, very talented guy. And knew a lot about astrology. And he was one of these guys that really got into the gene keys, became a gene key ambassador. They call themselves ambassadors. I tried to get into the gene keys. I guess I didn't have the right key to get into the gene keys. It was not my thing. I even got the book and everything. I got my gene key reading. It's like, I don't get this. Which is unusual because I usually get things. But not the gene keys. Anyway, one day, this is right after Obama had been elected. So we're talking, around 2009? Right, about 2009. And I was over at his place, and I was like, you don't know who this guy is. I'd done my homework on Obama. I knew the connections. I knew the dark, sordid backstory, the history, the mystery, the no-shows at Columbia. I mean, I was well informed. And he basically said that he would support Obama no matter what. And at the time, I thought it was pretty ridiculous. And I kind of still do. But in light of Trump and the loyalty and the devotion that the Trump people have for Donald Trump, I kind of get it now. I kind of get it, that there is an ideological buy-in that is, it's unmutable, it's fixed, immutable, fixed. So we got into that, and then we got into this whole philosophical thing. And he basically punched that everything is an illusion card. And it's like, yes, it is to some extent. And it's not in other ways. Which I said, I'll tell you what, if I had a gun, which I didn't. So what if I had a gun? What if I had a gun and went out to my car and got my gun and came up here and blew your brains out? Would that be an illusion? Probably not. Would the cell that I would find myself in, waiting for my time on death row, though California does not have the death penalty, if I'm correct, would that be an illusion? I don't think so. I really don't think so. And yet, I understand the sentiment because a lot of it is illusion. Strange universe we occupy, right? Anyway, we were still good friends after that. Good guy, really good guy. Just had one of those little philosophical tussles. Speaking of philosophical tussles, I'm going to start to wade slowly into the news today. There's a lot to talk about. One of the things I want to talk about relates to the title of today's program, The Days of Molech, which is where we are right now. We are in the fiery corridor of infanticide and child sacrifice. This is what these days represents. Child sacrifices to the ancient god, one of the fallen angels, Molech. Is Molech related to molecular? Ooh. There's a rabbit hole. Yesterday I talked about Waco and the Branch Davidians and what happened there and the fiery death of the children that represented a mass ritual sacrifice. So here we are. We're kind of in that quarter. Of course, tomorrow is the March for Our Lives staged walkout for schools across the country. I want to read you an email that I received from Austin Independent Unified School District. I want to read this to you. This is from Paul Cruz, who is the superintendent of the school district. I'll just find it here. So it's worth me reading. Let me just get into this. So I'm going to read you Mr. Cruz's email to the families of Austin ISD students. So this is a group email, very large group email. Dear Austin ISD students and families, it is anticipated that some of our students and staff may participate in the National School Walkout on April 20th. As students raise their voices, we understand there are many questions regarding their actions in this or any future demonstration. Austin ISD has created a frequently asked question tool below to share important information and processes with our community. Austin ISD has more than 81,000 students who come to school each day to learn, excel, and prepare for their futures. We believe finding their voice is an essential part of our students' preparation for college, career, and life. It is important for families to have conversations with their students about expectations, safety, and appropriate methods to express their views. We recognize that emotions are charged in regard to school violence, and we respect the different perspectives of students and families. As always, the safety of our students is our top priority. Please remember that if you or your child see something, say something. Wow. Supporting our children with positive and open conversations is the key to helping them deal with uncertainty. We will continue collaborating with our students and staff to create safe and positive learning environments. Respectfully, Paul Cruz, PhD, Superintendent. Oh, I want to read this one line. We believe finding their voice is an essential part of our students' preparation for college, career, and life. Well, what if their voice is a little bit different than the voice that you're supporting? Here is my email to Mr. Cruz. Hello, Paul. I am sure that you know that this walkout is being staged and supported by March for Our Lives. March for Our Lives is a group with a political agenda. And whether you or I agree or disagree on where we stand on that agenda, I think we can both agree on the fact that it is an agenda. And it has to do with not just gun control, but the eradication of the Second Amendment. March for Our Lives is a nonprofit that receives funding from groups like the Tides Foundation, the Open Society, and individuals that range from George Clooney to Oprah Winfrey. This is not a spontaneous outburst of support for what happened in Parkland, Florida, but a clearly calculated strategy to reanimate what happened in Columbine in 1998. One might even look upon this with not only a degree of cynicism, but also suspicion. My question to you is that why are you and the rest of the board taking such a lax view of this walkout? Are you allowing the children to experience some form of democracy? What if the children were to walk out and protest the treatment of children in Gaza and demand that the district and any affiliated branches of the district divest their interests in Israel? Would the district be as supportive? What if children were walking out as a protest against abortion and the right to life? Again, would the district encourage that level of democratic participation? My guess is that the answer would be no. But since my son attends school in your district, I hope it would be otherwise. But here's the real crux of the matter. You see, no one is running around organizing the kids to take part in those kinds of walkouts yet. Be careful, because you might be opening a Pandora's box where children are being used as pawns in a larger game of politicization. And while it might appeal to your more liberal sensibilities at this point, future marches and walkouts may not. and you'll run the risk of having to take the very same measures you're following now. But the more significant piece is that you'll have to go to sleep at night wondering if you've allowed some outside group, whether you agree with them or not, to manipulate and herd very impressionable children towards some goal in mind, which in this case is to convert and mobilize young people on the precipice of the voting age to march lockstep into young adulthood and a voting booth with a prescribed social vision, cultivated and farmed in our public schools. This might actually appeal to you. I don't know. I don't know you. But what I do know is that you're consenting to what is about to take place. And it is not some trivial event, nor is it an exercise in the practice of democratic freedoms through demonstration and soft dissent. It's the outreach of a specific group that is ultimately using a tragedy to conduct an ongoing political action. In short, it's community organizing, and it's found its way into the hallways of your schools. Lastly, in anticipation of your reply, which will no doubt stress the fact that it is the students and not adults that are organizing this, I think we could both agree that there are parents that not only pass their beliefs down to their children, but in many cases are actively involved in politics themselves, and their children an extension of their activism. Thank you for reading this email. I forgot to put the piece in around teachers and activist teachers who play a role, or I'm sure are playing a role, in getting these kids up and at 'em, marching away. Do you think Paul will reply to my email? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to send Paul a link to this show. Maybe Paul will have a listen. Do you think Paul would admit to being complicit at some level in supporting these marches because Paul is politically aligned with them? Do you think he would do that? I think what I'd like to do probably is maybe I'd like to set up an interview with Paul Cruz. I think that would be a really interesting exercise. That's going to be on my to-do list today. Do you think? All right, let me take the temperature here. Do you think that Paul Cruz will reply to my email? That's number one. And number two, do you think he would consent to an interview? That would be interesting. You can put your feedback in the chat room. Love to hear it. I'll let you know how it goes. And I'm going to be respectful, and I've been respectful so far. I've not gone too outside the lines, color too outside the lines. But I think it would be a really good exercise in community participation on my part, on Paul's part. I guess I should call him Superintendent Cruz. I'm just not big on titles. I don't have a title. So if I don't have a title, then, why should somebody else have a title? Unless, of course, I come up with a title. And I'm not good at that. I think the last time I tried it was Robert the Pudgy, although I'm not entirely pudgy. Anyway, March for Our Lives happening at a school near you and expected to get a ton of coverage. Oh boy, you bet. Expect to see David Hogg. This is a time where the youth of America have had enough. Gone are the old ways, the ways of lawmakers who are no longer responsive and listening to our urgent pleas. Never again, never again, never again. You have shown through your passion, your heart, your commitment, your willingness to stand up and walk out for the truth. That another student should never have to be at risk when they go to school. I could write the damn speech. So we'll see a lot of that. We'll see Emma Gonzalez, Ye-Che, the Ye-Che moment. And another sideshow, another ring of the circus. And there is more. There is more. So we're going to get into the more in a moment. But I've been going through a really interesting phase in my life. I keep ping-ponging between my 10th house and the midheaven and what I'm doing in the world and how I'm doing it, going down into the basement. To the basement of my chart, which is the 4th house and Pisces. And it's been an interesting journey, let me tell you. It's not over by any stretch. But one of the things I was really tapping into was, and this gets into this whole idea of the days of Molech and the sacrifice, the ritual sacrifice, the burning of children and all that stuff, is how we have participated in our own version of self-immolation, with the child within. At what point did we just kind of co-sign on a certain type of behavior or a certain type of response or a certain type of pre-programmed, in some ways, reaction to what takes place in our life and our world? And where does that come from in terms of our childhood? And the sacrifice, the ritual sacrifice, the burning of that part of ourselves. And this goes back to the conversation that Steve and Chris and I had about the state. And that conversation really, really stuck with me. And I've been thinking about this notion of how, even though when we are so well informed and we can see clearly what the hurdles are, what the obstacles are, what the Gordian knots are in our relationship with the state, we almost summarily and automatically opt into a reaction that supports the tyranny of the state. In as much as we would love to liberate ourselves from that tyranny. And that has really stuck with me. Really stuck. Why does it happen? And we've all done it. We've all done it. What is tantamount to our highest principles, just like the children that are sacrificed and burned ritually in this crazy ritual that's been going on for a long time, we too have done the same thing with ourselves and our lives. And those things that we hold near and dear, we sacrifice them. And why do we do that? Why does it happen? It's just like in the Matrix. When, what's his name? Smith. Mr. Smith. Mr. Anderson. You gotta love the Matrix. He says basically we created a version of the Matrix where, it was much happier and positive and people hated it. It's kind of the same thing in some ways. So this is part of my ongoing process to try to hone in on those things that, allow us. And why is it? It's not allowing us. It almost confines us to a series of choices that will repeat automatically until we really, really understand the nature of what's taking place. And I think there's some truth to what Zarathustra/Nietzsche says, that we have to basically throw the windows open and get out. Whatever that means or however that manifests. But it's been an interesting time. Just ping-ponging, going up and down, up and down. Hey, I'm up here. I'm talking to you. We're having a conversation. I'm bringing the news of the world and blah, 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 blah. And all stuff that's really important to me. And I hope to some degree it's important to you for whatever reason. Whether it's because you have some kind of fix on the news that you'd like to get from me, or my take on it, or my personal life, or, some people say, hey, I really like what you do because you make me laugh, or, you kind of lighten up the darkness, and that's fine too. I mean, those are all really, kind of important things. And in a lot of ways, that's why I do it. Then I go back down to the bottom of my chart. I'm like, well, how did I get here? And what am I doing? And, how are these things manifest in my life? And what are the choices that I made? And why did I make those choices? It's an interesting exercise, I have to say. Well, shall we go down a few rabbit holes? Before we do, let me just close this chapter here with this whole connection to Molech and these days of sacrifice, which clearly, we can see there's Columbine, and there's Oklahoma City, and there's the Branch Davidians. I mean, all this stuff happens historically, in basically about a 3-day corridor. It's a lot. It's a lot. So let's just close that. Let's just close that door for a moment, or close it for now. And just keep in mind that you still have a child within you, believe it or not. And just be attentive to that. Be attentive to that process, and attentive to that element inside. We have children. We have women inside of us. We have men inside of us. We got a lot inside of us. So I would say be vigilant about that child within, and don't sacrifice it at any given turn or corner in your life through some kind of unconscious decision-making process. Be vigilant. Really watch what's going on. Speaking of vigilance and watching what's going on, I got some headlines for you here. Some interesting stuff. I pulled this off of CLG News. So one of the things that's kind of fascinating is that, while this weird whatever's happening in Syria is going on and festering, well, it looks like there's some resolution actually taking place in North Korea. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing. So there's a treaty to formally end the Korean War. And it's being discussed. And South Korea is talking about it. We just entered Chiron in Aries, right? Chiron in Aries. And the Korean War has been going on. They never formally ended it. Here we are, Chiron in Aries. What is Aries? Aries is war. It's war, it's aggression, anger, soldiers, kickboxing, AMA, concussions, the National Football League. And Chiron is the wound. It is the wound. And if you look at, in a lot of ways, right, South Korea, North Korea are a classic case of Chiron. Remember, Chiron situated between Saturn and Uranus. That's where it is. So there's the Uranian component to Chiron. There's the Saturnian component to Chiron. South Korea has taken the Saturnian path. South Korea says, okay, we're going to be a manufacturing power. We can make things just like the Japanese. We're just as good at it, maybe better. And we're going to make a lot of money, and we're going to play ball with the world. A very Capricornian and Saturnian decision-making process. North Korea, on the other hand, goes the Uranian way and says, screw you. We're going to be communist. We're going to be taking everybody's resources, as meager as they might be, but we're going to take them and we're going to create a socialist state, which is very Uranian, right? This is Aquarius. Everybody's the same. Of course, that's not true. You go to Pyongyang, and you look at the people that are in Pyongyang, and you look at the people that are outside of Pyongyang. It's like it's two different species. And a lot of it has to do with food and protein and all kinds of other stuff. Like the chosen people get to hang out in Pyongyang for the most part. And then there's the chosen within the chosen. They rise through the ranks. And that's, this whole thing about equal is just complete bullshit. We're not meant to be that way. We're just not. But that is the path that they took. So it falls into that Urania and radical. Oh, I've got these missiles. I'm the young Turk, and I'm going to show you how tough I am. And I'm going to fire these missiles off. Meanwhile, South Korea plays nice. South Korea meets its production quotas. This is a clear example of Chiron, with South Korea playing the Saturnian role, North Korea playing the Uranian role. And what are we doing now? It's Chiron and Aries. And guess what? There may actually be some knitting and stitching together. And the ending of the war, officially, is actually a really great start. So isn't it weird that that's going on and things are actually happening? And it's happening under the auspices of the Trump administration. Now, here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a peace accord. And you're going to see the beginning of a reunification with North and South Korea. That is going to take place. Now, whether it takes place overnight, whether it takes place 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, it's going to happen. The wheels are in motion. And for Kim Jong-un to suddenly reverse course and say, screw you, and start firing missiles off, I just don't think it's going to happen. So what will happen, and that'll be a major event. It'll be a major event. And who do you think is going to get credit for that? It's going to be Xi from China. Well, it was a mysterious armored train voyage from North Korea to China, which led to an 11th hour meeting with Xi and Kim Jong-un. And it was during that meeting that they hammered out the final details for a peace agreement between North and South Korea. I guarantee you that'll be the narrative. And while Donald Trump blustered, baited, and bullied North Korea, it was the much more subtle, diplomatic, and refined undertones of the Chinese prime minister, president, whatever they call him, that led to this peace accord and peace agreement. And in fact, Xi did the world a favor by stepping in as tensions escalated between the United States and North Korea. Clearly, he saved the world from a potential Armageddon. Guarantee you, you'll hear something like that. Fact of the matter is that it's happening on Trump's watch, and whatever you think of North Korea, whether it's a CIA proxy state, some QAnon kind of fairy tale land, whatever you think of it, something's going to get done, and it's going to change perception. And will Trump get credit for it? No. Not at all. Apparently, Mike Pompeo met Kim in secret. CIA boss is said to have traveled to North Korea to meet Kim Jong-un. Two U.S. officials told Washington Post that Mr. Pompeo had made the secret visit to Pyongyang during the first weekend in April, speaking on condition of anonymity. They said the trip was to prepare for an upcoming meeting between Mr. Trump and the country's leader. Both the White House and the CIA declined to comment, but the Post said the pair had direct knowledge of the trip. You know what I'd love to see for this summit with Trump and Kim Jong-un? I'd love to see that summit take place in Disneyland. Not Disney World, but Disneyland. They shut the park down for one day. And Kim Jong-un and Trump hang out at Disneyland. Right? They ride Space Mountain together. You know, they go through It's a Small World after all. I think they may have shut that down, though. You can see them raising their hands on the Matterhorn together. Wouldn't that be awesome? And then, of course, the big meeting takes place at Club 33, where the two of them sit down and have a nice lunch, begin to hammer out the specifics of a peace deal and an accord between the two countries, perhaps a reunification between North and South Korea. I mean, how could you not get a peace deal done in Disneyland? MK Ultra abductions and all that other stuff aside from everything. That's just Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un finding their child within. In fact, maybe they should just stage that for all the countries in the world, right? Putin and Trump hanging out together, Disneyland, doing the same thing. There could be a reality show here. Why is Trump not pouncing on this? There could be the Disneyland Accords. Why hasn't anybody thought about bringing world leaders to Disneyland for a day? At the end of that day, how could they not be happy? Well, unless maybe somebody throws up on the other guy or woman, depending on who it is. That might be a bit difficult. You got the hands in the air moment, and all of a sudden, you know, there goes the Mickey burger. So it's happening. We'll see how it happens when it happens. This is a little interesting bit of news here. Pittsburgh police are preparing for riots if Trump fires Mueller. This is from April 18th. The Pittsburgh Police Department has reportedly alerted its officers and detectives of potential protests if Donald Trump fires a special counsel, Robert Mueller, and is preparing for riots if he does. Pittsburgh police sent an email on Wednesday telling officers and detectives that the department has received information of a potential protest in the Central Business District that would be a response to Trump firing Mueller. According to WTAE-TV, the ABC station in Pittsburgh, the police department also warned that the protest could happen in as little as 24 hours. Well, of course, they're primed and ready to go. They got the playbooks. They got the playbooks ready to go. The little sleeper cells are just waiting. They're just waiting for the phone call, the text message with the code. What do you think the code would be to initiate the action? What do you think the code would be? Operation Orange Hair. Probably something like that. Let's see. The police have been told to be in uniform and have riot gear ready beginning on Thursday. That's today. Friday, we're coming up on Friday. Friday's a big day, right? Friday's when they drop the bombshells. Okay, here we go. Some more going on here. The GOP chairman is poised to subpoena DOJ for Comey Memos. The head of the House Judiciary Committee is expected to subpoena the Department of Justice as soon as this week to obtain copies of the Comey Memos. The Hill has learned House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte, Goodlatte. That guy should have his own coffee place, don't you think? He's got the perfect last name for it. Good lattes. Good lattes. I mean, he's got all these insider connections. That'd be a perfect side business for him. Is expected to issue the order in an effort to pressure the agency into granting access so lawmakers can review the 7 memos former FBI Director James Comey wrote last year documenting his interactions with President Trump. According to 2 sources familiar with the matter, the chairman on Wednesday notified the ranking Representative Gerald Nadler of New York that a subpoena is forthcoming Under Judiciary Committee rules, the chairman must consult the ranking member 2 business days before issuing any subpoena, suggesting that the move is imminent. Meanwhile, Kimba Woods rejected Trump's bid to block access to Cohen materials. Well, we got a chess game going on here. I mean, this has been nothing but an organized takedown of Trump from the start. It is an absolute travesty. Now, is Trump vulnerable? Did he bring this on himself? Well, to some extent, yes. Anytime somebody's got Mars on the ascendant in their chart, they're going to be conflict-oriented. They're going to have conflict front and center. And, of course, Mars is right on his ascendant. And because he was born in New York, it gets even closer when he moves to Washington. So part of it is astrological. Part of it is probably some degree of ego, maybe some degree of karma with a small kid. But also part of it is the fact that somebody lost an election and they didn't like it. They've been going after him ever since. Now, there's another potential narrative to this. The narrative is that perhaps, just perhaps, the election was so close that they pushed the election for Trump to win, perhaps, asterisk, that they would then have an assault that would be asymmetrical and then completely ruin Trump, stain the conservative faction, break down, disassemble the alt-right, and in so doing accomplish a lot of damage as a result of this. Like, this could have played right into their hands in a lot of ways. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that happened, but I mean, you have to think along these lines sometimes. Okay, what else do we have here? New York Attorney General wants power to bypass Trump pardons. New York's Attorney General on Wednesday asked corporate-owned Governor Andrew Cuomo and state legislators to give him and other local prosecutors power to bring criminal charges against people pardoned by U.S. President Donald Trump. In a letter, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman urged Cuomo and legislative leaders to close the loophole in New York's double jeopardy law, shielding recipients of presidential pardons from state prosecution. A change could make it more difficult for Trump aides and others who might be pardoned to escape criminal prosecution, even if special counsel Robert Mueller's probe into possible Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election were curbed or shut down. So why didn't they do this with Obama? Why didn't they do this with Clinton? Why didn't they do this with Bush? I mean, Clinton pardoned Epstein. Clinton pardoned Jeffrey Epstein, the guy who is the head of Pedo Island, Lolita Island. He pardoned him. And he had all kinds of corruption and just, all kinds of shit that just stuck to him. But corruption was embezzlement, corruption, all that sticky white collar crime. He pardoned him. Who's Trump pardoned? He pardoned that was his name, Tyson Saucier, or the guy who was taking pictures of the nuclear submarine to show his parents. He pardoned him. He pardoned Louis Libby. Oh my God. That was a Bolton move, by the way, because Louis Libby was a buddy of Bolton's in the neocon faction of the Bush administration. And there's no coincidence that Libby got pardoned soon after Bolton showed up. Let's see. Trump opposes U.S. joining the Pacific Trade Deal. President Trump on Tuesday said he's opposed to the U.S. re-entering the Trans-Pacific Partnership and instead advocated for establishing bilateral trade deals with countries. While Japan and South Korea would like us to go back into TPP, I don't like the deal for the United States. Too many contingencies and no way to get out if it doesn't work, Trump tweeted. He added that bilateral deals between two nations are far more efficient, profitable, and better for American workers. Who's going to argue with that? Absolutely. You set yourself up to be a part of a trade deal with all these other countries. Essentially what you're doing is you're kind of lowering yourself to the same standard and the same voting power as other countries who are not as nearly as productive or lucrative or have as much at stake. It's just the case. Let's take Chile, for example, which would, I think, be part of the TPP, if I'm not mistaken. Or if not Chile, let's go with, say, the Philippines. You think the Philippines is on the same level as the United States? No, it's not. And so for the Philippines to have the same kind of trade deals, sanctions, negotiations, points, etc., as the United States is not a fair deal. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. It's not a fair deal. It's like the United States being a part of the Paris Accord. The United States is part of the Paris Accord. It is treated at the same level as a third world developing country. Do you think that that's fair? No, it's not fair. Sorry. As much as we'd like to have a Pollyanna view of the world and how the world could work, it's just not fair. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the bilateral trade deals actually mean, or whether Trump will 48 hours from now go back on his latest statement. A Swiss lab says BZ toxin used in Salisbury, not produced in Russia, is produced in the US and the UK. The substance used on Sergei Skripal was an agent called BZ, according to the Swiss state Spitz lab. The Russian foreign minister said the toxin was never produced in Russia, but was in service in the US, UK, and NATO states. Isn't that interesting? Sergei Skripal, the former Russian double agent, and his daughter, Yulia, were poisoned with an incapacitating toxin known as 3-quinusilidinyl benzylate, or BZ. Russian Foreign Ministry Sergei Lavrov said, citing the results of the examination conducted by a Swiss chemical lab that worked with samples that London handed over to the Organization for the Prohibition of the Chemical Weapons, OPCW. The Swiss Center sent the results to the OPCW. Let me tell you about BZ. BZ was a drug that was developed as a, how do I say this? LSD was already being used extensively in research, R&D, guinea pigs, you name it. They were using LSD to see if they could create people that could be mind controlled or incite degrees of violence and aggression. And they found out that the LSD was not very good for that. That most people wanted to laugh, cry, and talk about seeing God. So they decided to get back into the laboratory and create another psychedelic that might have a bit of a different impact than LSD, hence BZ. And BZ, when they tested it, they were absolutely astonished and terrified by what they saw, because BZ created a complete psychotic break inside the individual. So it was totally hallucinogenic, but unlike LSD, where there was some kind of reference point with the material world, BZ, there was none. The individual was obliterated. And not only that, but they were also moved to levels of heightened states of aggression. If you've ever seen the movie Jacob's Ladder, it's about BZ and the United States Army's use of BZ in the Vietnam War, which apparently they did use. And Jacob's Ladder is a loose narrative of what happened. And all these guys who took BZ started firing on each other. Jacob's Ladder is a heavy movie. I highly recommend it, by the way. I'd say it's probably one of the top 10 movies that I've seen. That's BZ. So who knows how much they gave them. Wouldn't need much. I'm going to read you 2 more stories here. Then we're going to get on out of here. This is an interesting one. And also disturbing. The headline here is anti-GMO activists in D.C. to deliver petition to EPA. Found floating dead in hotel pool. This is from April 13th. Environmental activist Milagro de Mier, also known as Mila, who traveled from Key West, Florida to Washington, D.C. to drop off an anti-GMO mosquito petition with nearly 200,000 signatures to the EPA and the FDA, was found dead in her hotel pool Tuesday morning. Authorities arrived at the Cambria Hotel and Suites, Washington, D.C. Convention Center on Tuesday morning after a witness found an unconscious woman floating face down inside the rooftop pool called 9/11, according to Fox 5. In addition to petitioning the EPA and FDA, Demier was in D.C. to raise awareness surrounding a controversial plan by a UK biotech company, Oxitec, to release 50 million genetically modified mosquitoes per week into the Texas and Florida ecosystems. I'm telling you, man, activism is dangerous. There are some serious occupational hazards here. If you want to look this story up, I'll give you the source. It comes from the naturalblaze.com. And the author is Jay Sermopoulos. Okay? Naturalblaze.com. There's a lot more with the link there. Mila's website, Never Again. How about that? Her website was Never Again. And the Parkland kids stole it. Founded in the wake of the 2010 BP accident, explained that Oxitec's applications to the Cayman court noted the company's intent to sell a second animal drug to fix problems created by the initial release. Oxitec's application to the Cayman court makes it clear that the company intended all along to design and release Asian tiger mosquitoes as well as Aegypti. It refers to both species throughout stating that from the outset, the company intends to sell a second animal drug to fix the ongoing problems created by the first. This is a nice-looking person. This is her tweet, @Scott Prude. Okay, please grant additional 60 days for public comments. Please take a look at my petition and how fast-moving. Public is reacting. Change.org. This is shocking, to be honest with you. Her final tweet on April 9th indicated she was eagerly waiting to call back. @EPA, Scott Pruitt. Please, 30 more days. Waiting from Nancy Beck. Office callback. Time is on the essence. It's of the essence, but... The tenacity of Demier to rally people around this important, underreported cause made her a formidable nemesis to the GMO biotech industry in Florida and beyond. And while there is no evidence at this time to suggest her activism played a part in her death, the facts surrounding her mission against genetically modified mosquitoes most certainly warrant a deeper investigation into her untimely death to ascertain if there are any connections. When asked whether Demier's death was being investigated as a homicide, D.C. Metropolitan Police refused to comment, telling the Free Thought Project is still under investigation at this time. We have no further comment until that investigation is completed. It's pretty sad. That is pretty sad. Some of the comments, these mosquitoes have already been let loose in various places like Houston. I met a woman who was bitten by a swarm of them and ended up with Lyme in bed for 2 years. Oh boy. Stuff like that is hard to read, I have to say. Difficult. Let's get to one more story. This one has to do with Syria. And it has to do with the Syrian boy in white helmets, faked video. I think I have another connection to that story. Let me find it. I'm going to read this. Yeah. Let me find it. Okay, so this kid, this is from David Icke. It's just a tweet from David. I'll read you kind of the bigger piece here. Boy in hashtag Duma chemical attack video says he was lured with cookies, then sprayed with water. I was lured with cookies, then sprayed with water, says chemical attack boy. That'd make a good name for a band, wouldn't it? Chemical Attack Boy. Chemical Attack. What would the first album be? The first CD be? Chemical Attack Boy. Free cookies. Chemical Attack Boy. I got my white helmet on. I have to work on it. Let me read you the story here. That's David Icke's tweet, by the way. The story goes like this. The White Helmets, a Western-backed NGO known for its ties with terrorist groups, had released a video showing alleged victims of the false flag chemical attack in Duma. The U.S. and its allies used the video as a pretext to conduct missile strike on Syria. Russia 24 TV channel has released an interview on April 18th with a boy who participated in filming a fake video as evidence of the false flag chemical attack in Duma by the White Helmets. In the interview, Hassan Diab says that he and his mother heard loud voices on the street urging everyone to rush to the hospitals. When Hassan entered the hospital, unknown people grabbed him, poured water on him, and then put him with other patients. Interesting. So I wonder how long it's going to take for the left to character assassinate little Hassan Diab. When investigating Hassan Diab's past, it shows that he cheated on a test in the 3rd grade. While Hassan Diab was taking a test on geography, apparently he looked at another student's test to find out where Tennessee was. In breaking news, another piece of information has emerged from Hassan Diab's past. At 8 years old, Hassan Diab took a lollipop from his sister. Now, details of the event are a bit murky and unclear, but unnamed sources have it that Hassan Diab brazenly snatched a lollipop out of his younger sister's hands. More details to emerge. Headlines. Another breaking news event with, of course, Hassan Diab. Rumor has it that he was shown not washing his hands after going to the bathroom. multiple witnesses have testified that after using a public restroom, Hassan Diab neglected to wash his hands. That's where we are. That is where we are. Absolutely. Let's see. Anything else? Mission accomplished in Syria. Trump declares on Twitter. Pentagon U.S. allies launched 105 missiles in Syria. U.S., France, and U.K. Syria strike over Syria over chemical attack. Blah, blah, blah. You know a lot of this stuff already. Been there, done that. Been there, done that. Been there, done that. Let's see. Here's some good news. How about that pilot that rescued those people on that Southwest Airlines flight? That's pretty cool, right? Come on now. That was a pretty kick-ass event. It was passengers aboard a Dallas-bound Southwest Airlines flight on Tuesday. Oh, this is a different one. Oh. To pull a woman back into the plane where she was sucked into a hole left by a shattered window. Holy smokes. Witnesses said the woman died. How about that? That's different than the woman who... Oh, this is interesting because there's two things going on here. Wow. Okay, so it's the emergency landing. Okay, FAA... All right, this is okay. So, all right, here we go. Let me just sort this out. Federal airline regulators say they'll order inspections on engine fan blades, like the one involved in the fatal failure that killed a woman in a plane that made an emergency landing in Philadelphia. The Federal Aviation Administration said, okay, so this is the same flight. She almost got sucked out of her window. Wow. And then Barbara Bush died. I'm not even going to open that Pandora's box. I'll leave you with a nice little story here. Giant group of octopus moms discovered in the deep sea. 2 deep sea expeditions have revealed a giant group of octopuses and their eggs in a place where they shouldn't be able to survive. When I first saw the photos, I thought they shouldn't be there. Not that deep, not that many of them, says Janet Voigt, a zoologist at the Field Museum in Chicago, and co-author of a paper on the octopuses published this month in the journal Deep Sea Research Part 1. Nearly 2 miles deep in the Pacific Ocean and 100 miles off the coast of Costa Rica, scientists on 2 oceanographic cruises used subsea vehicles to explore the Dorado Outcrop, a rocky patch of seafloor formed of cooled and hardened lava from an underwater volcano. Aries meet Taurus, with a little bit of Pisces thrown in. Geochemists explored the outcrop in the submersible, hoping to collect samples of the warm fluids that emerged from cracks in the rocks. They didn't count on finding dozens of octopuses huddled around those openings. What a lovely vision, right? All these mommy octopuses with their eggs hanging out, basically taking a deep sea vent holiday, right? Let's go to the spa. Let's go to that deep sea vent spa and have our kids. That's all they're doing. Who knows? Maybe what's going on the surface of the water is pushing them down, and whether it's too cold or too toxic or whatever. We're just gonna wrap this up and say that the mama octopi were taking a spa day. That's what they were doing. Let's do a little bit of a time tunnel, and then we'll get on out of here because it's an interesting day. It's an interesting time tunnel day. We got a little comment in the chat room. There's Maury. Hey, Maury. Maurice. Anyone here yet? It's 9:12 a.m. No, Maurice is not quite there. It's a lonely chat room today. It's just Maurice. Come on, people. Go in there and say hi to Maurice. Don't make him feel so alone. Here, I'll even say, I'm here. Here we go. I'm here. Hi, Maurice. See, you're not alone. You're never alone. All right, let's play a little time tunnel, multi-dimensional. Well, today is April 19th. And April 19th is the 109th day of the year. How about that? Let's see. Let's go way back in time. What do we have? In AD 65, the freedman Milicus betrays Piso's plot to kill the Emperor Nero. And all the conspirators are arrested. How about that? The conspiracies going on in AD 65. The only difference then is they got arrested or killed. Today, not so much. 1529, we've been following, to some extent, the process that took place during the Diet of Worms, which is when Martin Luther basically said, hey, these are my views about the Holy Spirit. These are my views about Christianity. And there's going to be a Reformation. And he did not recant his views. So in 1529, it was the beginning of the Protestant Reformation after the Second Diet of Speyer bans Lutheranism. A group of rulers and independent cities protests the reinstatement of the Edict of Worms. Let's see, what else do we have here? In 1713, with no living male heirs, Charles VI, Holy Roman Emperor, issues the Pragmatic Sanction of 1713 to ensure that Habsburg lands and the Austrian throne would be inherited by his daughter, Maria Theresa, who was not born until 1717. In 1770, all you Aussies out there, this is when Captain Cook, when he was still a lieutenant, looked into his little telescope and sighted the east coast of what is now Australia. Today is the anniversary of Marie Antoinette, who married Louis XVI of France in a proxy wedding. Happy anniversary. In 1775, American Revolutionary War trivia. The war begins with an American victory in Concord during the battles of Lexington and Concord. It's a good way to start the war. What else do we have here? In 1782, John Adams secures the Dutch Republic's recognition of the United States as an independent government. The house which he had purchased in The Hague, Netherlands, becomes the first American embassy. Let's see. In 1810, Venezuela achieves home rule. Vicente Emparan, governor of the Captaincy General, is removed by the people of Caracas, and a junta is installed. What else do we have here? In 1927, Mae West went to jail on this day for 10 days. There was a play that she was in. I think it was her play. It was called Sex. And she went to jail for 10 days for obscenity. Can you imagine that? Mae West, a play called Sex, 1927. Man, that was beyond racy. That was scandalous. Here we go, 1943. Albert Hoffman deliberately doses himself with LSD for the first time 3 days after having discovered its effects on April 16th. He discovered its effects by having it actually touch his skin. I think this is Bicycle Day. Either April 16th or today is Bicycle Day because he got on his bicycle and he rode around on his bike. And that's what you do, right? You take a little trip and you ride around your bike. Locally, there's a young woman down the road from where I live in a town called Dripping Springs, went to Dripping Springs High School, and was found tripping her brains out, apparently on LSD. It's a high school student. She now faces between 2 to 10 years in prison for being high on acid. How about that? What else do we have? Let's see. This is a good day for a wedding. Grace Kelly married Prince Rainier of Monaco, just like Marie Antoinette got married as well on the very same day. In 1818, French physicist Augustin Fresnel signs his preliminary note on the theory of diffraction. The document ends with what we now call the Fresnel integrals. In 1971, Sierra Leone became a republic, and Saka Stevens, the first president. It's a little bit better than Mr. Banana, who became the first president of Zimbabwe. President Stevens, President Banana. Let's see. Charlie Manson, sentenced to death, later commuted to life imprisonment for conspiracy in the Tate LaBianca murders. Some people believe that those murders never actually took place. Some people believe that Charlie Manson might have actually been George W. Bush. There's a rabbit hole. Climb down that one if you have a couple hours you want to kill. Let's see what else we have here. 1985, 200 ATF and FBI agents lay siege to the compound of the white supremacist survivalist group, the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord in Arkansas. The CSA surrenders 2 days later. It's in 85. It may be just a bit of a coincidence, but in 1993, the 51-day FBI siege of the Branch Davidian building in Waco, Texas, ends when a fire breaks out. 76 Davidians, including the 18 children under the age of 10, died in the fire. Yeah, I wonder if they're going to memorialize those children tomorrow during the March for Our Lives. Somehow I don't think that that's going to happen. 1995, of course, on this very same day, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City is bombed, killing 168 people, including 19 children under the age of 6. And that is where the bulk of the records and the testimony for the trial that took place in the aftermath of Waco were stored. Another rabbit hole with Timothy McVeigh. There are some people who claim that Timothy McVeigh never died by lethal injection, that he was actually brought back out and recirculated, essentially mind wiped, and put back into the game. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying it's another rumor. Let's see. What else do we have here? In 2005, Joseph Ratzinger, the cardinal, is elected to the papacy, becomes Pope Benedict the 16th. Quite a different pope than our current New Age pope, who now goes to mosques and prays, don't you think? In 2011, Fidel Castro resigned as secretary, as the first secretary of the Communist Party in Cuba, after holding that title since 1961. And in alignment with all these other bloody, gory, fiery events, in 2013, Boston Marathon bombing suspect Tamerlane Tsarnaev is killed in a shootout with police. His brother Dzhokhar is later captured, hiding in a boat inside a backyard in the suburb of Watertown. I watched that event all night long. All night long. And I saw them put Tamerlane Tsarnaev in handcuffs, naked in the back of a squad car. Naked. Oh, and just for shits and giggles, The Simpsons first appeared on a series of shorts on the Tracy Ullman Show. First starting with Good Night. This is 1987. So let's just go back and recapture a few of these high-level events. The ATF and the FBI in 1985 surrounds a survivalist group, the Covenant and the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord, which seems to me like it was probably a precursor dry run. So it would take place later on in 1993 with a 51-day FBI siege at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco. Of course, the compound burns to the ground. We have the Oklahoma City bombing, and we have Tamerlane Tsarnaev being shot after, essentially, martial law was called in Boston, and people were dispatched with guns going door to door. If I'm not mistaken, we're actually asking people to divest themselves of their weapons during that little exercise. All right. Why don't we get on out of here today? Here we go. We got some people in the chat room. I finally found a way. If you're talking now, I cannot hear it. My speakers turned on. Oh, did I mess up? No, hold on a second. I might have messed up. No, I got the speakers on. We're talking. I'm seeing something. All right. Let me get on out of here. Hey, listen. You know, the world is a crazy place right now. No, we can hear you. Okay. The world is a crazy place right now. It really is. And sometimes you just got to sit back and pull out the lawn chair and crack open a cold beverage, whatever it is you want, or drink. It could be fermented, whatever that is. And just sit back and take it in. Just take in the absurdity, surreality, just take it all in. And from that point, you can pretty much choose what you want to do. Let's see. Do I want to get involved? What degree do I want to get involved? And where do I want to get involved? You can move from that perspective. Remember, you can always take a time out. Put your feet up, crack open a cold one, have a good laugh over how absurd things look and appear at certain times. The theater of the surreal and the bizarre. And you are both an actor, and a participant, and a witness to it all. All right. Listen, have a great day. You know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real. Your heart to stay open as possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame, which actually lasted an hour and 19 minutes. Thank you for your patience. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality. programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off